This is Ian R. Crane. It's the morning of Wednesday, the 19th of September 2018. We're a little bit late going live this morning due to a couple of technical issues. And it's a stunningly bright morning here up in North Nottinghamshire, but primarily that's due to the phenomenal sky fracking over the east coast of England last night. And as the sun rose and it's risen behind the sky fracked area, then the diffusion of the sunlight is absolutely blinding. But really that's the least of anyone's worries right now, because yesterday we saw a very, very sinister turn of events here in the UK when a lady by the name of Suzanne Small, who had been researching the negative health impacts of the microwave frequencies associated with 5G, and went along to discuss her concerns with her doctor, with her medical practitioner. Well, unfortunately, rather than share her concerns or even look at the information that was being offered, the medical practitioner took it upon herself to report this lady, and she was subsequently taken into custody under the Mental Health Act. And she currently is in detention in a psychiatric facility in the southeast of England. So this is effectively, of course, a thought crime. And what we are seeing is the establishment attempting to quell dissent. You know, the commitment behind the rollout of 5G in 2020, early 2021, is so significant that it would seem that anyone who has the audacity to raise their concerns will have the full weight of the establishment descend upon them. And of course we're seeing that in Gateshead with Mark Steele, where Gateshead Metropolitan Borough Council have managed to get a temporary injunction pending a full hearing against Mark Steele, and they're preventing him from sharing his concerns about the testing of 5G frequencies and LED street lighting in the Gateshead area. And despite Mark sharing the evidence that he's collated of the nosebleeds, of the nausea, of the sleeplessness, of the stillbirths, of the increase in cancer, then basically the establishment, and particularly in this case Gateshead Metropolitan Borough Council, do not want him sharing these concerns, and thus they have put the injunction upon him. And he'll be in court in Newcastle Crown Court on October the 11th to challenge that injunction. And the evidence, of course, that Mark must essentially bring to bear there will establish whether or not the judiciary are prepared to do the right thing, or simply hide behind quite possibly the City of London versus Samid ruling of 2012 and say, no, we cannot take into account any evidence that actually would justify such concerns. We're only going to look at whether or not Gateshead Council are getting upset because you're making this information or making these allegations against them. So if you have concerns about this, then I suggest that you contact your MP immediately, and that you also make it very, very clear that you have deep concerns about the way in which this country is descending into a totalitarian corporatist state. And as I've alluded over the last couple of mornings, this is rule by judges, which is a critocracy, or a critocracy, or a dictocracy. I guess that comes from diktat, by the judiciary. So really, really important to pick up on this, because, as I say, this is the thin end of a very, very fat wedge. Now, back into the fracking arena for a few minutes, and what we are seeing is rats leaving the sinking ships at a phenomenal rate. And it's now been reported in the mainstream media that two of the directors who were parachuted into Third Energy last year in a desperate attempt to give the company credibility as it made its application to frack at Kirby Misperton in North Yorkshire, have tendered their resignation. And the timing, of course, is not insignificant, because Third Energy are due to publish their accounts at the end of this month, and if they do it on time, that'll be a first. The likelihood is that they will delay as long as possible, and no doubt that Keith Cochrane of Carillion fame, he's already got enough hanging around his neck from his association with Carillion. Clearly he doesn't want to be associated with another meltdown, i.e. Third Energy. And the other director that's resigned is Jitesh Gadia, who was actually parachuted in because he is reportedly extremely influential in the Tory party. He's a major Tory party donor, and of course it's his financial contributions that enabled him to be elevated to the House of Lords. So Keith Cochrane and Jitesh Gadia both resigned from Third Energy prior to the next round of accounts being due. And although the media still says that the company is Barclays backed, of course it isn't. Barclays have made it abundantly clear that they're desperate to sell this dog of a company, but gasp of surprise, they haven't been able to find a buyer. And no doubt Jim Ratcliffe of INEOS is watching this very closely, and will eventually, of course, offer to take it off of Barclays' hand for a nominal pound, provided, of course, Barclays deals with the debt level, which is likely to be in excess of 50 odd million, and that's just for Third Energy's onshore operations. If you look at Third Energy as a whole, then the debt level is probably well in excess of 100 million. And so Barclays are open to offers if anyone's interested, but to say that it's Barclays backed is actually no longer true. And of course, it should be the same with Quadrilla. Of course, the media will promote it as Centrica backed, and that's true right now. But I'm sure that Centrica are beginning to realise that basically they are literally and metaphorically just throwing money down a black hole. And Quadrilla have already burned through the 60 million in cash that enabled Quadrilla to brag that they had moved into profit. Well, if somebody throws you a bung and that bung happens to be a little bit more than your outgoings, then I guess that, in the perverse mind of a motherfracker, that enables you to claim that you're in profit. So I think Centrica are probably also looking at whether or not this is a viable proposition. And of course, the smart money would be on pulling the plug on Quadrilla and just leaving them to effectively disappear. Unless, of course, Jim Ratcliffe steps in and offers to take it off Centrica and AJ Lucas's hands for another nominal pound, and even that is overpriced. Well, meanwhile, the country, up and down the country, councils are debating the government proposition to enable fracking, or at least the exploratory drilling of potentially fracked wells. And let me make it very, very clear that nobody drills an exploratory well into unconventional geology without the intention of fracking. So, basically, seismic testing, drilling equals fracking. Well, fortunately, councils of whatever persuasion are rejecting this proposition. And last week, we were able to report that Rydale District Council, Rydale, of course, is the district in which Kirby Misperton happens to be located in North Yorkshire, and they voted 26-0, and this is a Tory-held council. Other councils that have certainly voted almost unanimously: Bury Council in Lancashire. And earlier this morning I was advised that Mansfield District Council and Otley Town Council have also voted to reject the government's proposition to make fracking permitted development. And a quote has been shared with me, so thanks to Dennis May for sharing this. The Otley Council Chair, Ray Georgeson, said, "It is important to note that there are no plans to explore for shale gas through fracking for the Wolf Valley and the Otley area at present. But the government proposals ride roughshod over the local planning process and will make it easier for developers to extend their reach of exploration when it next suits." So, a very astute observation, and of course, the whole prospect of making fracking permitted development is the thin end of a very, very fat wedge. But of course, it should be ringing massive alarm bells, because this is effectively an attempted coup by the corporations, and the corporations working with the judiciary to establish their secret hearings, their ex parte hearings, on the basis that they don't want to have any opposition when they make these applications in the courts for the injunctions. They simply want the courts to rubber stamp their application and literally ride roughshod over parliamentary democracy to establish a raft of legislation that goes above parliamentary law. So, if this doesn't concern you, then all I can say is that you're not paying attention, and that we are literally sliding into a totalitarian corporatist state where anyone who has the audacity to challenge the philosophy of commerce having precedence over human health and well-being, or over the protection of the ecology and the environment, runs the risk of being sectioned under the Mental Health Act. So our thoughts today go out to Suzanne Small and her family, and let's just hope that sanity prevails, and that Suzanne Small is not only released from incarceration in a psychiatric hospital in the southeast of England, but that the media, the lamestream media as well as the alternative media, take an interest in why this occurred and helping to share the concerns that she raised with her GP. And of course the onus is on the establishment to prove to the wider population that the technologies that they are looking to force upon the country are tested and proven to be safe. And that cannot be said with either fracking, i.e. the exploitation of unconventional hydrocarbons, or the microwave technology that is the basis for the 5th generation telecom system, due to roll out in just a couple of years from now, but being trialled in communities across the country. And no doubt there'll be a lot more on these subjects in the coming weeks and months. So thanks for joining me this morning, and as is always the case, please don't take anything that I say at face value, or anything anybody else says at face value. You have no need to. The information is available, it's out there at the moment, it's generally freely accessible, so do your own research and come to your own conclusions. But let me make it very, very clear that if we the collective we elect to do nothing, then the prognosis really doesn't bear thinking about, and we will be condemning future generations to lives of absolute abject misery. So thanks again for sharing with me this morning. Please help by sharing this around, because I have some limitations on my ability to share on social media. So and I'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 8:30. You take care now.